Look at the next question. Tariffs and subsidies are both examples of restrictions, economic benefits, economic penalties, or incentives. So let's go over what a tariff and subsidy is. A tariff is a tax that you impose on goods that are being imported from other countries or internationally. And so that's going to be, a tool to help protect domestic producers and also, raise the price of imports. Subsidies, on the other hand, are given to people to basically stimulate or incentivize behavior that the government wants more of. And so that can be either domestic or international, basically lowering the cost of production for certain goods. So let's take a look at the answer choices. Restrictions. So tariffs are not a firm restriction. They're going to decrease the amount that you import for sure, but they're not saying that you can't import. A restriction would be more akin to a quota, where you say, we allow, we're going to allow 1 million tons of steel to be imported, and that's it. And that's a quota, and that's a cap, and that's a restriction. A tariff is not going to be one of those. It's more of a tax. I would say it's an incentive. It's not a benefit or a penalty necessarily. You can think of it maybe as a penalty for importing, but that's not going to be the same case for subsidies. And we know that subsidies are, benefits. So they can't both be benefits and penalties. And then subsidies don't restrict behavior at all. They are not saying you can't do anything. In fact, they're saying we want you to do more of this, and so that's an incentive. So we can think of both tariffs and subsidies as different forms of incentives for certain behavior that the government might want to stimulate. Take a look at the answer choices provided by the previous tutor. The previous tutor says incentives as well, which is good. And they say tariffs are an instrument of protectionism imposed by the state on imports to protect the interests of domestic producers and suppliers and to reduce the intensity of competition from foreign players. Again, yes, very true. That's why you would implement a tariff in most situations. Subsidies, on the other hand, are monetary provisions granted by the states to support a particular economic activity or sector. That is a subsidy. Both are economic incentives provided to protect or enhance the welfare of a set of market agents. Both are economic incentives. You're basically trying to motivate certain behavior. When an economy is open to international trade, competition in a global environment pitches domestic players against foreign players, reducing prices in the domestic market and harming their producer surplus. Now, that's not always the case, right? Like, it's only in certain industries where a certain industry's equilibrium domestic price is maybe higher than the world price. That's where you're going to have this situation where producers are being harmed. So tariffs are employed on imports by the government that increases imports prices and subsequently domestic supply. So subsidies are either provided to manufacturers or suppliers to support the production of certain goods or services of vital importance to society, but of low profitability, or for pollution abatements to reduce externality from the market, or are given to buyers to support the demand for certain goods and services, especially those that are crucial to life but do not fall in everyone's affordable bracket. So these are, I think there's a variety of there's a variety of reasons in which you would implement a subsidy. Tariffs is pretty one single-sided, like you would be doing it to, protect producers in the domestic economy, and again, maybe also protect national security interest in certain areas, or maybe punish other countries. But why don't we clarify the one thing I wanted to say, which is competition in the global market only hurts domestic producers if domestic prices are greater than equilibrium prices. If, on the other hand, domestic prices are less than equilibrium prices, then the industry would become an exporter and would actually benefit from global trade. This let's say point of clarification. Tariffs would thus only be used in scenarios where domestic prices are less than equilibrium prices. And there's a whole like graph and like system to understand exactly what happens when you have the interaction between a domestic economy and a global economy, and you know if an economy becomes an exporter versus an importer, you know that is something that you can visualize on the graph, and that's something that you know if your class goes a lot into that, that's important to understand as well. But this is mostly correct. We're going to say it's mostly correct.